People do not understand that culture is as biological as genes. Okay?
Right.
We see culture as an alternative to biology, but in fact, culture is biology. And so the
selfish gene was great for that. By the way.
the selfish gene was not great. It was the beginning of our ability to rigorously understand that fact. But
that's where I'm going with that. Yes, but continue your thought though.
So here's the problem. I want to give Dawkins his full due here, because I think that the selfish gene is the thing that opens the door to our rigorously understanding culture. But it makes an error, a serious one, but an error that I can't fault Dawkins for making. Anybody who made as big a contribution as he did would be liable to make an error somewhere. He made one, and it has not been corrected. And as a result, we have the wrong understanding of culture. And the error is that Dawkins says culture is a new primeval soup, right? That this is a new evolutionary tree. He's not right about that.
It's been a while since I read the book, but you're saying that. So I mean, if you look at it with what is the advent of grain 10,000 years ago, and if you couple that with the advent of language, that would certainly be new in terms of the broader evolutionary landscape.
Okay, but can we agree that the ability to cultivate food creates an opportunity to produce more people who carry genes, right?
Correct.
So the point is, that's physiological enough.
Yeah.
The point is, when Dawkins founds the idea of memes and mimetic evolution, right? He has exactly the right idea, but he understands it as independent from genes. And therefore, he imagines that a bunch of stuff which is in conflict with the genes evolves there.
And are you going to make, I'm just going to possibly preempt what you're going to say, you're going to make the argument that biological evolution has certain built-in that privileging or promoting certain cultural practices increases the likelihood that the species will continue, and thus there's some covariance between genetics and cultural output.
You're working way too hard.
Oh, okay.
You're working way too hard. What I'm saying is that cultural evolution is a means to an end, right? The genes create a cultural mind. They create a brain that can be inhabited by culture to solve a problem that the genes can't solve directly. In the same way, your DNA cannot fly, but DNA can make wings that allow a bird to fly. And so my point is, culture evolved to serve a genetic purpose. I don't like the fact that it did, but it did.
So what do you mean by a cultural mind?
If you were to pull a garter snake from your garden, and you were to lecture it on epistemology, it would not work, right?
I'll fact check that is true.
Yeah, the animal does not have a mind that can take on that kind of information and alter its behavior on its basis. Okay? Likewise, a tree, an insect. There are very few creatures that have the capacity to alter their way of thinking after they are born. In other words, they're not genetically pre-programmed in a way that is productive. Okay. Now, learning obviously exists, but the point is, learning is not the same thing as culture, because culture is the transmission between individuals of useful information. Now, the question is that, as Dawkins presents it in The Selfish Gene, in chapter 11, is that a new evolutionary environment? The same way if I programmed a new biological environment inside a computer, we could watch things evolve in there, game of life, right? Is it a new environment? Or is it the genes doing something that they cannot do directly in an indirect form?
Why would you think the latter?
Because it can't be otherwise. Okay, imagine, look, everything has a cost. The cost of religious belief is through the roof with respect to the gene's perspective, right? Imagine a book full of things you're not allowed to do. Genetically productive stuff. You're not allowed to rape. You're not allowed to steal. You're not allowed to murder. You're not allowed to lie, right? Those are a lot of potentially valuable strategies that have been taken off the table by something that lives in culture.
Okay.
Right? The only way that the genes would not shut that shit down is if that stuff was more than paying for all of the costs with benefits in the genes eye view. Right? In other words,
that doesn't that assume that that's the isn't that like a monolithic lens to view the problem? I mean, it could be that that those you're saying that you're not saying they're culturally adaptive then?
No, I'm saying they're culturally adaptive, but culturally adaptive is not adaptive in cultural terms.
You're saying in biological terms.
I'm saying
you're right.
I'm saying the genes are in the driver's seat.
So why couldn't those things be a byproduct like the moral mind? Why couldn't that be a byproduct of an evolutionary?
They're too useful. It's not a byproduct, right?
But it could be an evolutionary accident.
Right. And we can make the same argument about a wing or an eye. And the point is, it's not a very
Stephen Jay Gould argument.
But Stephen Jay Gould was wrong.
Yeah, that's the consensus from my understanding. Yeah.
I mean, it's just logically a feeble argument, right? The idea that we don't know that a wing is an adaptation is a pretty weak argument. We can establish that it's an adaptation by virtue of the fact that it is expensive and it doesn't go away over evolutionary time.
That's also the creationist argument that you don't have a half an eye, et cetera.
Well,
But bracket that. Go ahead.
I mean, nobody does a better job with that argument than Dawkins, right? Dawkins does a brilliant job of cataloging all of the partial eyes that exist in nature. And, the creationists are of course, wrong. My point is that Dawkins was absolutely right and revolutionary in what he said, but he has fallen short of maximizing the return on what he spotted.